Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm going to be reviewing Supergirl Season 1. Now this was a series that took me a while to get into, but I found my way in it. I didn't really like the first episode when I first watched it, but I found my way into it and ultimately am enjoying it much more than I thought I would. It was created by Greg Berlanti, the man behind Arrow, The Flash, DC, Legends of Tomorrow, and now Supergirl. And it stars Melissa Benoist as Supergirl, Kara Danvers, aka Kara Zor-El. It also stars Chrysler Lee, Jeremy Jordan, David Harewood, and Calista Flockhart. And really, it looks at Supergirl and the creation of Supergirl and how she became who she became. The story's a little different in this, and it is much better than the 80s film that came out starring Helen Slater, and it does a lot better delving into the Supergirl story rather than that film did. It really looks at Kara Zor-El. Her parents sent her to Earth to look after her cousin Kal-El, aka Superman, and as they were both heading towards Earth, her pod got trapped in the Phantom Zone, and it was years later that she was expelled from there and she landed on Earth, and by then her cousin had already become Superman. She was taken in by the Danvers, brought up with her adopted sister, and was told to sort of not show people her abilities. It was the government organisation out there after particular people with gifts like that and wanted to destroy or kill them, and they tell her not to show her gifts. So she ends up denying who she is a little bit and wearing glasses and sort of letting go of that side of her. She ultimately becomes assistant to Cat Grant, and the character of Cat is part of the Superman mythology, and had appeared in Lois and Clark that was done in the 90s. And she's living a simple life. Ultimately, something happens and she has to save a lot of people's lives, and this is her becoming who she truly is and feeling normal and being able to use her abilities to help others for the first time in many years. So it ultimately becomes her becoming Supergirl. They give her friend designs a costume for her, and she starts to help people around the city and feels like she's finally fulfilling what she's been sent there to do. What's really great about this series is it's about her trying to find out who she is and trying to prove herself in a world where everybody's against her in a way and people don't believe in her. I like the fact that it's really about a strong, powerful female trying to prove herself within this sort of world. I like that she makes mistakes and she's really trying to learn, and she isn't as capable to begin with as she ultimately becomes, but it's all a learning curve for her. And you get behind her in that aspect. It sort of reminds me a lot of Smallville. In a lot of ways I think it's a better show than Smallville, because Smallville was more of a soap opera, where this is not so much. I think Greg Berlanti's done a really great job in creating this show and cast a really great person to play Supergirl. She sort of is a little nerdy and a bit clumsy in parts, and I think that's a great reference back to the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeves playing Clark Kent like that. And I kind of really like what they do with that. And along with her, there is some other great characters in it, like her sister Alex, played by Chrysler Lee. She is sort of part of the DEO, a government organisation trying to protect the Earth from alien invaders, trying to protect the Earth and stop creatures or aliens that are trying to attack Earth. And it's about her and her sister working together to try and stop this. There's a Hank character who ultimately becomes a Green Martian. There's so many great elements to this and great characters, and there's a lot of side characters. Jimmy Olsen comes into it from the sort of Superman world, which I think was a really great idea. Cat Grant is kind of an interesting sort of character. There's a lot of villains along the way. We get to learn a lot more about Krypton than we did before, because ultimately Kara had been there as a young girl and seen a lot more and understood a lot more about the world than Superman did. It sort of sucks you in this series, I think, in a lot of ways. She's really great in it. You go along the journey with her. You really want her to be able to prove herself. You want her to be able to do what she does best, become the hero she always wants to be, and provide that help and assistance for the national city, to be like her cousin Metropolis and to be the hero everybody wants her to be. But everyone's so fearful of her coming out with her abilities, her parents, her sister, even Hank, he's not quite sure about her coming out and showing the world who she is, because they're fearful of what might happen to her, and what people might do to her. Yeah, they've sort of built her up in this series, and there's a lot of faith in her, and then something transpires and everybody loses faith in who she is and what she's capable of. And I think that was a really great reference to other Superman content as well, where it looks at where Superman may go through something and frown upon him and not think he is the hero he's meant to be. But the key to this show that I really, really love is the idea of hope. Hope things can get better. The hope people can find someone to believe in, to get behind. The hope that people will find what they're meant to do in life and pursue it, no matter what it costs them or no matter what happens. And I think this is a really good example of that, of following what you feel is who you are and accomplishing the things you set out to do. And I really love that about it. I like that all the side characters are kind of solid. They all get their moment to shine within the series. There are episodes based upon just those sort of characters. And they introduce a really interesting and fun world. It's a little cheesy and a little sticky at times, but there's a point and purpose to it. And I kind of really like it. It's kind of sweet, it's kind of fun. It's really aimed at young girls and women, which I think is fantastic. It's a really great hero for young girls to look up to, much like Wonder Woman, as a character that they can get behind and look up to and inspire themselves to be what they feel they should be and accomplishing things they want to set out to do. And I think she's a really good role model for that, and I think that's another element too is really brilliant. And it's just the way it's written and put together is really fantastic, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, much more than I expected I would. And I have gone on to season 2, which I will do a review of as well after this, and to look at the differences between the first season and the second season. I think Greg Berlanti is a really interesting guy, and he's done really well in creating this Arrowverse, as they're calling it, with Arrow and the Flash and DC Legends and Supergirl. And he's really created a fun and interesting sort of thing. And I think it's much better than a lot of the Marvel TV series that they're trying to accomplish and tie together, like the Defenders, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think it's very interesting what they're doing, and they're really capturing each element to this. Like Arrow is very dark and gloomy and sort of like Batman. The Flash is sort of dark with a bit of humour, and where Supergirl is much lighter than either of them, and I think that's really great. Greg Berlanti he cut his teeth on Dawson's Creek. Unfortunately, he was the producer and the co-writer of that Green Lantern film that was really terrible. But he's gone on to do other variety of other things, such as these TV series, and has most recently directed Love, Simon, came out not long ago. And I think he's a really interesting producer and showrunner, and he's really doing some fascinating, interesting things. And this is my first look into this to the world. I've watched 1 or 2 episodes of Arrow, and the same with The Flash, and I really want to get into those shows as well, but I'm sort of going first with this show, which I'm thoroughly enjoying and getting a lot out of. I felt it's about time that they did a better version of Supergirl. Like, there are cartoons versions of her that do exist, but the 80s movie with Helen Slade, who also appears in Supergirl playing Kara's surrogate mother, didn't really do well in explaining her story, and I think this has sort of done a really great job of going back to that story and evolving it and changing it and making it more accessible and fun. And Superman does exist in this world, and they have cast someone to play Superman, which I thought was a really clever idea, to sort of say that she does exist in Superman's world, just in a different city than he does. And there are scenes, and he does appear, and they do have episodes with them two working together, which is really fun and great. And I think they're really brilliant putting those two together and creating such a fun and entertaining show with these so many fascinating characters. They do look at the love story elements, and I do kind of like that. And there are things that they do with the characters that go in different directions. Wynn's another really good character, who's the son of the toy maker. And I think that he's a sort of great character. I feel that all the characters within it, besides Kara, are really interesting and fascinating as well, and they've sort of fleshed them out. They sort of fleshed them out enough. They're real characters, they're real people in her world, and we get to see them and what they do and who they are and how they try and help her accomplish what she sets out to do. It's really fantastic in that. And I was really blown away by this series and really impressed with it. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is a really interesting and fun series. It mightn't be for everyone. The cheesiness might get to some people, but trust me, it's a very well made show, and it gets better and better, and season 2 is even better, I think, in a lot of aspects. I'm just a really big fan of this sort of show, and I'd like to see more of it and see how it evolves as it goes along, and also see how the character evolves as well. Anyway, like I said, I'll review season 2 very soon once I've finished it, and then I'll go on to season 3. Anyway, that's all from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy what you've seen here, and if you have, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.